Lanoe Hawker VC, DSO was a British flying ace, with 7 credited victories during the First World War. He was the first British flying ace, and the third pilot to receive the Victoria Cross, the highest and most prestigious award for gallantry in the face of the enemy that can be awarded to British and Commonwealth forces. He was killed in a dogfight with the famous German flying ace Manfred von Richthofen. Early life. Son of a distinguished military family, Hawker was born on 30 December 1890 at Long Parish, Hampshire, England. Lanoe was sent to Stubbington House School and at the age of 11 to the Royal Navy College in Dartmouth. But although highly intelligent and an enthusiastic sportsman, his grades were disappointing. As a naval career became more unlikely, he entered the Royal Military Academy in Woolwich before joining the Royal Engineers. As an officer cadet, a clever inventor, Hawker developed a keen interest in all mechanical and engineering developments. During the summer of 1910 he saw a film featuring the Wright Flyer, and after attending an aircraft flying display at Bournemouth, he quickly found an interest in aviation, learning to fly at his own expense at Hendon. On 4 March 1913, Hawker was awarded Aviator's Certificate No. 435 by the Royal Aero Club. Promoted to first lieutenant in October 1913, he was posted Cork Harbour with the 33rd Fortress Company. His request for attachment to the Royal Flying Corps was granted, and he reported to the Central Flying School at Upavon on 1 August 1914. With the RFC, Hawker was posted to France in October 1914, as a captain with No. 6 Squadron, Royal Flying Corps, flying Henry Farman's. The squadron converted to the BE-2C, and he undertook numerous reconnaissance missions into 1915, being wounded once by ground fire. On the 22nd of April he was awarded the Distinguished Service Order for attacking a German Zeppelin shed at Gottrode by dropping hand grenades at low level. From his BE-2C, he used a tethered German balloon to help shield him from enemy ground fire as he made successive attacks. During the Second Battle of Ypres, Hawker was wounded in the foot by ground fire. For the remainder of the battle he had to be carried to and from his aircraft, but refused to be grounded until the fight was over. Returning to 6th Squadron after hospitalization, the squadron now received several single-seat scouts, and some early FE-2 pushes. One aircraft received was a Bristol Scout that Hawker, with assistance from air mechanic Ernest Elton, equipped with their design of Lewis gun mount, enabling the machine gun to fire forward obliquely at an angle, missing the propeller arc. While with No. 6 Squadron in 1915, Captain Hawker was a compatriot of Captain Lewis Strange, DSO OBEMC-DFC*. The squadron became pioneers of many aspects in military aviation at the time, driven largely by the imagination of Strange and the engineering talents of Hawker. Hawker's innovative ideas at this time greatly benefited the still-fledgling RFC. He helped to invent the Prideaux disintegrating link machine gun belt feed, and initiated the practice of putting fabric protective coverings on the tips of wooden propellers, the use of fur-lined thigh boots, and devising a primitive, rocking fuselage for target practice on the ground. In 1916 he also developed the increased capacity 97-round double drum for the Louis machine gun. It was issued for trials in July, and after modifications was issued generally to the RFC and RNAS Victoria Cross. Following an initial air victory in June, on 25 July 1915 when on patrol over Passchendaele, Captain Hawker attacked 3 German aircraft in succession, flying Bristol Scout C, serial No. 1611. The first, after he had emptied a complete drum of bullets from his aircraft's single Lewis machine gun into it when spinning down. The second was driven to the ground damaged, and the third, an Albatross CI of FFA-3 which he attacked at a height of about 10,000 feet, burst into flames and crashed. For this feat he was awarded the Victoria Cross. This particular sortie was just one of the many which Captain Hawker undertook during almost a year of constant operational flying and fighting. He claimed at least 3 more victories in August 1915, either in the Scout or flying an FE-2. Hawker was posted back to England in late 1915, with some 7 victory claims, making him the first British flying ace, and a figure of considerable fame within the ranks of the RFC. It has since been argued that shooting down 3 aircraft in one mission was a feat repeated several times by later pilots, and whether Hawker deserved his Victoria Cross has been questioned. However, in the context of the air war of mid-1915, it was unusual to shoot down even one aircraft, and the VC was awarded on the basis that all the enemy planes were armed with machine guns. More significantly, by the summer of 1915, the German Feldflieger Abteilung two-seater observation units of the future Luftstreitkräfte had by this time received examples of the Fokker Eindecker monoplane, with one Eindecker going to each unit, with a fixed forward-firing machine gun fitted with a synchronization gear that prevented the bullets from striking the propeller. The first claim using this arrangement, though unconfirmed by the German army, was by Lieutenant Kurt Windgens on 1 July 1915, some 225 miles over Lunéville distant from where Hawker had his 3-victory success nearly a month later. Therefore, the German pilots like Windgens and Lieutenant Otto Parschaw, another pioneering Eindecker pilot, could employ the simple combat tactic of aiming the whole aircraft, and presenting a small target to the enemy while approaching from any angle, preferably from a blind spot where the enemy observer could not return fire. Hawker flew before Britain had any workable synchronizer gear, so his Bristol Scout had its machine gun mounted on the left side of the cockpit, firing forwards and sideways at a 45-degree angle to avoid the propeller. The only direction from which he could attack an enemy was from its right rear quarter, precisely in a direction from which it was easy for the observer to fire at him. Thus, in each of the 3 attacks, Hawker was directly exposed to the fire of an enemy machine gun. 1st Fighter Squadron, promoted to Major early in 1916. Hawker was placed in command of the RFC's 1st Fighter Squadron, No. 24, based at Hounslow Heath Aerodrome and flying the Echo DH-2 Pusher. After 2 fatalities in recent flying accidents, the new fighter, which featured a forward-mounted Louis machine gun, soon earned a reputation for spinning. Its rear-mounted rotary engine and sensitive controls made it very responsive. Hawker countered this worry by taking a DH-2 up over the squadron basin, in front of the squadron pilots, put the aircraft through a series of spins, each time recovering safely. After landing, he carefully described to all pilots the correct procedures to recover from a spin. Once the pilots became used to the DH-2's characteristics, confidence in the aircraft rose quickly, as they came to appreciate its maneuverability. He then led the squadron back to Betangles, north of the Somme in February 1916, where the squadron quickly helped counter the Fokker Eindecker monoplanes of the Imperial German Army's Fliegertruppe, which were dominant over the Western Front in the run-up to the Somme offensive in July 1916. Hawker's aggressive personal philosophy of "attack everything" was the entire text of his tactical order of 30 June 1916. Spurred by his aggressiveness, 24 Squadron claimed some 70 victories by November at the cost of 12 of its own planes and 21 pilots killed, wounded or missing. Around this time, Hawker developed a ring gun sight and created a clamp and spring clip device to hold the Lewis in place on the DH-2. He also designed sheepskin boots that reached to the upper thigh, known as fog boots, which became standard issue to combat the risk of frostbite at high altitude. By mid-1916, RFC policy was to ban squadron commanders from operational flying, Hawker included. However, he continued to make frequent offensive patrols and reconnaissance flights, particularly over the Somme battlefields. As the year wore on, the Germans introduced far more potent fighters to the front, starting with the Luftstreitkraft's first biplane fighter, the Halberstadt D2, and shortly thereafter the even more advanced Albatros DI, rapidly making the DH-2 obsolete. Death and legacy. On the 23rd of November 1916, while flying an Airco DH-2, Hawker left Batangle's aerodrome at 1300 hours as part of a flight led by Captain J. O. Andrews and including LTR-HMS Saundby. Andrews led the flight in an attack on two German aircraft over a cheat. Spotting a larger flight of German aircraft above, Andrews was about to break off the attack, but spotted Hawker diving to attack. Andrews and Saundby followed him to back him up in his fight. Andrews drove off one of the Germans attacking Hawker, then took bullets in his engine and glided out of the fight under Saundby's covering fire. Losing contact with the other DH-2s, Hawker began a lengthy dogfight with an Albatros D2 flown by Lieutenant Manfred von Richthofen of Jasta II. The Albatros was faster than the DH-2, more powerful and with a pair of LMG-08 machine guns, more heavily armed. Richthofen fired 900 rounds during the running battle. Running low on fuel, Hawker eventually broke away from the combat and attempted to return to Allied lines. The Red Baron's guns jammed 50 yards from the lines, but a bullet from his last burst struck Hawker in the back of his head, killing him instantly. His plane spun from 1,000 feet and crashed 200 meters east of Louisenhof Farm, just south of Bapaume on the Flores Road, becoming the German Ace's 11th victim. German grenadiers reported burying Hawker 250 yards east of Louisenhof Farm along the roadside. Richthofen claimed Hawker's Lewis gun from the wreck as a trophy and hung it above the door of his quarters. Major Lanoe George Hawker is listed on the Aris Flying Services Memorial for Airmen Lost with no known grave. Hawker's original VC was lost when the Hawker family belongings were left behind after the fall of France in 1940. On their return after the Second World War, they found that their possessions, including the VC, had been stolen. A replacement was issued to Hawker's brother on 3 February 1960, and is now held by the Royal Air Force Museum, Hendon. Hawker was a first cousin of Arthur Bagot, a naval officer in the First World War and Albert Medal recipient. A window commemorating Hawker was installed in St. Nicholas Church, Long Parish in 1967. The design features St. Michael above an airfield with two pilots in the foreground. There is a copy of the window at the Museum of Army Flying at Middle Wallop. Bibliography. Monuments to Courage. The Register of the Victoria Cross. The Sapper VCs. VCs of the First World War. Air VCs. Windsock data file number 44. Bristol Scouts. Barker, Ralph. The Royal Flying Corps in World War I. Robinson. ISBN 1-84119-4700. Gutman, John. Pusher Aces of World War I. Osprey Pub Co. ISBN 978-1-84603-417-6. ISBN 1-84603-417-5. Staunton, Anthony. Victoria Cross. Australia's Finest and the Battles They Fought. Prahran, Victoria, Australia. Hardy Grant Books. ISBN 1-74066-288-1.